So I like to say that I was prostituted by men, that it's something that was done to me. And it's not an identity. Like I wasn't a prostitute myself. It's something that was done to me. And I think there was a lot of prior grooming that I only was able to understand after I got out. But basically, since the age of 5, my father exposed me to pornography. I also knew that my father had worked for the mafia in Montreal family. He had worked in strip joints. So basically, I had this image that everything about my father's previous life before he married my mom was super cool. He had been around the world. And in his a night table next to his bed, he had all these fake dollar bills from the Amsterdam red lights. And at work, when you opened his locker, he had all these pictures of naked women. So like it was everywhere. So there was a lot of grooming, but I was only able to understand that years later. I asked myself when I entered therapy at 23, when I needed to get out of it, was why did I fall into it so easily? Why did I know what to do? Why was I so detached and professional? Like it's not normal at 16 when a man offers you money for sex that right away you feel like, yeah, I know what to do. I'm in control. Like it's crazy. So the year of when I was 16 years old is when I accepted to do the first client. And it was actually in my hometown, a small logging town way up north in the province of Quebec. And then from that, I made enough money to run away towards Montreal, the bigger city. And I was quickly caught up in the sex trade because I started bartending at 17 in a strip club, knowing very well that and I think another factor that really predisposed me was that in school, I was like a chubby glasses and I didn't feel attractive. I was kind of too gifted also intellectually, where I was interested in more adult themes, and I never went to kindergarten. So I wasn't socialized with other children. I tended to want to talk with adults. And at 11 years old, I wanted to be an archaeologist, and I love ecology. And so my topics of interest had nothing to do with the other kids my age. And so when I ended up in Montreal, I settled right downtown. I got an apartment above a club that was the first fetish club in Montreal. At the time, I would have said, I'm cool, I'm proud. I would have even looked at regular women and say, oh, you could never do what I do. And it's crazy the things that we tell ourselves. And then throughout the 6 years that I was in the sex trade, I talk about a sex industry and a sex trade because it is structured as an industry. And I can explain that later. But basically, it's nothing to say of the women who do it. It's something to say about the men who coerce us with money to get access to us sexually, when I think that sexuality should not be something that you can bargain. For the same reason that we're not supposed to sell organs or ovum and sperm and, blood. And there's things that should be considered. Yes.
Is this why you don't want to use the word, you refuse to use the word sex worker, especially to describe yourself? And you're very rightly so particular about the way that you describe your experience and what you used to do, because it's not a job. It's not something that we should be pushing as sort of a life choice.
Of course, first of all, as soon as we say sex work, by the way, this term was coined the pimp lobby, the American pimp lobby, and I believe the 70s or 80s. So this term didn't come out of women themselves. It was something made to brand it as very cool, as very legitimate. And as soon as you say sex work, you've just pushed two different lies by you kind of bypass thinking about it. When you say sex, I'm sorry, but if sexuality is to put your own desire on hold in order to service someone, I don't think that sex. And there's no other work that happens in people's orifices where there's contact with mucous membrane and body fluids. Any profession that requires contact with body fluids is always done in order to save lives, and it's always done with equipment. So it's just I did the extensive exercise one day to sit down and try to make labor law fit onto the sex industry. It's just impossible. It's dehumanizing, and then it calls for dissociation because for women, I always talk about women because the majority of exploited people are women, but obviously young gay men or even heterosexual young men who run away or trans-identified people, I feel like they all get exploited the same way women get exploited. Like men demean us in a very gendered way in the sex trade. They inferiorize us. They push us into the sexuality of service. So what I was saying is that basically all of the way I think today is because I've been out of this exploitation for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing about why I don't like to call it sex work is because it's kind of tricky. When you're in it, you need to tell yourself things in order to do it. You need to have a reason to say, I'm a sex worker, I'm proud. And I used to, for 6 years, I would have defended it. I would have said it's my choice.
It's
blah, blah,
empowering.
blah. But neoliberal discourse will bring no explanation once those reasoning don't help you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You start having autoimmune condition, you're in pain, you have invisible pain. You no longer dissociate as freely in and out of it as you used to be able to in the beginning. It starts to catch up with you. And when it starts to catch up with you and you experience it as exploitation of something precious of yourself that should not be exploited, then the whole sex work is work.
Mm-hmm.
That will not be helpful. It will not bring you any explanation about how you feel now, about how damaged you are. It damages your relationship with men, with money, with family, with your own worth, with your own intelligence, because you are called to use only very specific traits.
Mm-hmm.
What I like to say about prostitution is when we try to say we should legalize, I'm fully on the position that we have to decriminalize prostituted people,
Yes.
but not the client.
Yes.